We all know that 2020 will be remembered as the year of the coronavirus. A once-in-a-century pandemic that devastated families, crushed our economy, and caused record unemployment. However, despite a very weak economy, the housing market continued to thrive, and Latinos increased their homeownership rate in 2020 for the 6th consecutive year, the only racial demographic to have 6 straight years of growth. Experts predict that this trend will continue because Latinos are passionate about homeownership and are the youngest demographic in the country. In fact, with an average age of 29 years, a majority of Latino adults are just starting to enter their prime homebuying years. For these reasons, the Urban Institute, a Washington, D.C. think tank, predicts that over the next 20 years, 70% of homeownership growth in the United States will come from the Latino community. While there is good reason to be optimistic, there are barriers that can slow future Latino homeownership growth. The financial impact of the pandemic has hurt Latinos disproportionately. Qualifying for mortgages has become more difficult, especially for self-employed borrowers, and an extreme shortage of housing supply are all problems that need to be solved in the next few years. Getting government policies that impact Latino homeownership correct not only affect the housing sector, they have broad implications for our overall economy, as housing accounts for 16% of the nation's gross domestic product. And it's housing, more than any other sector, that is pulling the country out of the coronavirus-induced recession. The pandemic has taught us that the future is not guaranteed, but it's also illustrated that how the housing market fares, so goes the U.S. economy. And no demographics play a more central role in America's housing economy than Latino Americans.
Hello, everyone. The future of homeownership in the U.S. is Latino. We're very glad to have you today. My name is Gabriela Teissier. ¿Cómo están todos? Nos da mucho gusto recibirlos aquí. I have been a Latino immigrant in this country for the past 25 plus years. And I work as a news anchor with UNIVISION for the past 18 years. I wake up really early, and my duty and privilege has been to inform Latinos in this country. Yes, we all wake up really early in the morning, and we have been an integral part of the growth of this beautiful nation that has really embraced us. So nosotros, los Latinos, here, we are mainstream today. And so yet we still have this Latino Hispanic thing about us. So today in this virtual forum, we will uncover why speaking to Latino home buyers in culture and in language is so vital today. For that, we have an incredible panel and diverse also experts that will cover different fields in the real estate industry. And before we bring them in, I would like to direct your attention to our QR code that will immediately take you to our UNIVISION team. They are here to help you with any inquiries you may have. And also the more traditional email, not snail mail, but email, connect with us at univision.net. I'm so happy to be your host today. I know we're going to learn a lot. So let's start with Gary Acosta. I'm going to tell you, Gary is a housing expert and entrepreneur. He's a co-founder of the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, NAREP. And NAREP is the largest Latino business organization with 40,000 members in 100 local chapters. Gary, hello. Let's bring him in. I'm going to tell you, Gary, you are a data-driven professional. And I understand you do big research, and you would like to share some of that with us today. Hello.
Hi, Gabby. It's great to be here. And absolutely, our organization, as you mentioned, is one of the largest Latino business organizations in the United States. And as you know, the housing market has been absolutely crazy over the last year in particular, and not just in 1 and 2 markets. Growth has been the Latino marketplace and the Latino consumer and home buyer population is the State of Hispanic Homeownership report. So I'm going to share with everybody some of the data that we were able to identify this past year. If you want to just pull up the first slide. Latinos drove growth across the country and were the only demographic in the country to own their home versus those that do not, is approaching 50%. And while this still lags the overall home ownership rate for the country, it has been growing and growing rapidly over the last several years. We used data from the U.S. Census Bureau, from HMDA, which is where mortgage bankers report their data, from NAREP surveys of our members who are out there at the point of sale conducting transactions, and from organizations like the Urban Institute that also do research in a similar fashion. Moving to the next slide, I'll say that the success of the Latino marketplace, or at least the growth, has not been without challenges, or what I call headwinds. So the positives for Latino homeownership definitely outweigh the negatives. But some of the things that really drove growth this past year have been record low interest rates, which has made affordability more possible for more consumers. And coming from the quarantine itself, I think a lot of us have reevaluated our housing situation. We see it more than just And now it's a place that we do a lot more things. So that has really driven, I think, demand as well. Home buying years. And if there's two data points that drive home ownership more than anything else, it's age and income. And the Latinos are becoming a little bit more prosperous in the way of the income, in the way of their income and in their wealth creation over the last several years. And also, Latinos are forming households at a faster rate than any other demographic in the country right now. So, perspective. Now, this growth is happening despite some headwinds, as I mentioned before. So, number one on that list is that we are seeing relatively tight mortgage credit. And that means it's tougher to get a mortgage right now than it has been historically. Own a small business. And right now, it's probably tougher than ever for self-employed individuals to qualify for a mortgage. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed. And one of the things that has been a challenge over the last several years. The primary challenge in homeownership right now for almost every market in the country right now is inventory. There is very little affordable housing stock available for sale. So even though we may have a lot of people who have the means and the desire to participate in homeownership, if there are not homes for sale, that's just not going to have an overwhelming effect. So we have to, probably more than anything else, address the inventory issue in the United States if we want to continue to see homeownership grow in this country, particularly for the Latino community. This past year has been particularly difficult for the whole country, as we know, but disproportionately for the Latino community. Suffered high unemployment rates over the last decade, high infection rates due to the pandemic itself, nation overall. So clearly we're trying to work our way through that. And right now, the demographics show that Latinos also probably have the least number of individuals who have the capacity to work remotely. We're seeing sort of impact our workforce and our economy. And it's something where Latinos just don't have the types of jobs where that's readily available. So all those things are barriers that I think it's important to keep an eye on. Again, the trends for homeownership are reliant not only on the positives, but we have to look at some of the headwinds as well. Just expanding a little bit more on this concept of age, and we can move to the next slide, to really get a sense of really how powerful this is. The average age of the Latino in the United States is 29 years. If you compare that to the non-Latino white population, which is 44 years, that's a tremendous, tremendous difference. Our data shows that the prime years for purchasing your first home are somewhere between the ages of 28 and the early 40s. So you can see the general population is that kind of aging out of those prime years, while the Latino population is aging into those prime years. And you can see the breakdown. Almost half of the Latino population in the United States is under the age of 34. And I actually heard another data point, which I thought was really fascinating, and that is the age that is most common for Latinos in the United States is 8 years old. That's where the most number of Latinos exist in this country, 8 years old. So it gives you a sense of what the future is going to look like as well. And that leads me to my last slide, which is the future, which as the film that we showed early on really indicated, the future is actually looking pretty bright. Moving to the next slide, you can see that there are also 8.3 million Latino households that are mortgage ready, which means have the financial wherewithal to purchase a home and have not yet. So there's a strong desire for home ownership coming in the coming years, which is largely tied to our ability to have the inventory for these home buyers to purchase these homes. The Urban Institute, which is one of the most respected think tanks in Washington, D.C., recently released a report that estimated that 70%, and that's 70 with a 70, not a 17, but 70% of homeownership growth in the United States over the next 20 years will likely come from the Latino marketplace or the Latino community. So this isn't just a one-time phenomena. This is not something that's just going to, be a driver for this year or next. This is going to be the face of homeownership for the next decade and beyond. And I think that our industry needs to prepare for that. The marketplace needs to prepare for that. Policymakers need to understand that. The entire U.S. economy depends on this growth because the housing sector is so important towards our GDP and our overall health and well-being as a nation economically.
It's great and motivating and eye-opening because we do our field test, right? I think every professional that is watching us today, wherever you are, on your cell phone, on your tablet, on your computer, at work, you probably know this. You've seen it, Gary, and now it has data that can be proven, right?
Absolutely. And it's undisputed. So you've got several organizations and the federal government that are all pointing to the same numbers. So absolutely.
This is great, great news, really motivating. So let's bring in the rest of the panel so we can start a conversation. And I would like to go to my notes to introduce to you Chrissy Johnson, who's Vice President of Public Policy and External Affairs at Rocket Companies. Position on mission-critical policy issues at the federal, 50 state and local levels as well, including housing finance reform, expanding access and equity, and fintech innovation as well. So Chrissy leads all third-party stakeholder engagement, including trade association, consumer advocacy, civil rights groups, think tanks, and market peers, and more. Chrissy, how are you? How many hats do you wear?
I'm a big hat fan. What can I say?
Wonderful. Let's bring in our next guest. Now, Mike Meadler, you know him, President and CEO of Century 21 Real Estate LLC. Mike has been a proud member of the Century 21 Real Estate brand for over 20 years and more. A lot of experience there, working in every facet of the company, from franchise sales, CEO of the brand in 2019. Little did he know that right after that, a big pandemic, Century 21 and its nearly 150,000 independent sales professionals operating in 13,500 offices across 86 countries and territories worldwide continues to be most recognized and respected brand in real estate. This year, they're very excited to celebrate year anniversary. Hi, Mike.
Hey, thank you so much. It's so great to be part of this esteemed panel and this conversation. Thanks.
We like to see your tan now that we've been able to get out a little bit more. Thank you for joining us. And now let me bring our next guest, nationally recognized businesswoman, American Funding, the largest Hispanic and women-owned mortgage company in the U.S. today. And under her inspiring leadership, she continues to drive the growth and empowerment of women and minorities in the marketplace to ensure more opportunities for the most deserving.
To Gary's point earlier, help build wealth and economic advantage for the folks who get into residential real estate. It's not just a home, it's not just a place, a roof over our head, but it's a great wealth builder here in the United States. And I think that education along the way is really an important part to the process in Latinos or anybody who's getting into it for the very first time.
Yeah, great points. And I'm going to bring in Patty to ask her about this, because you have a great experience and you have been a pioneer in actually the lending process to minorities. And they say that if there's anybody who can actually get a loan done, that would be you, Patty. What are the challenges or the opportunities for us as a Latino community?
Listen, there isn't another demographic in our country that desires to own a piece of this wonderful country like Latino demographic. The immigrant perspective of our families and our lineages, we've always wanted to own homes. In fact, my nana trae una casa, Patty, like, you're going to buy me a house. So my whole life, I've known this desire and this passion around it. You know, much like other demographics, the Latino market starts with their phones. They start Googling, they start searching about how, you know, puede comprar zero enganche, or cómo puede comprar una casa, like how do I find a house? Everything is started with the mobile phone. And so we do see a lot of engagement from the Latino market in Googling just the ask. But really what we found through our data and through our business is that we still want that trusted advisor. We're still looking for our padre or our primo or somebody in our family to tell us, yes, you can do it. It's not that difficult. So I think that really granularly, we've looked at it, still the simplistic process of owning a home, but yet, just like we said prior in conversation, it is a difficult process. So I think education is still key, and being able to access this information in a language specific to where we come from, and to make sure we see ourselves in organizations, I think is really important.
Yeah. Hold on there, Patty, because I want to ask you something about the lobbying that you do at the Washington level, because we're talking about access to that money, to those funding, to those loans. And that is another component that is really key here.
Yeah, so, you know, I work with Nard and Gary hand in hand, with Chrissy as well, on policy making around this country. Policymakers have to understand our cultural nuances. There are policies that are made in this country that actually prevent us from being able to give access to credit to those in need. There's even just this from the state level to a national level, regulations that actually make lenders like ourselves fearful of giving giving credit to this demographic of buyers. So we really do have to work hand in hand as organizations like Gary, and with Quicken and Century 21. We all need to work hand in hand to make sure that policies that are being pushed down to us make sense, and that are not creating more barriers for us to give access to the home loans that they deserve.
Correct. And let's bring in Chrissy to talk about that as in your job as a vice president of public policy and also external affairs at Rocket Companies. And Patty just quoted, yeah, you have a lot of experience in that realm as well, Chrissy.
Yeah, she mentioned credit, and just as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, credit has tightened, and loss of a job or income is one factor, but credit score is another. And it's really critical that we're modernizing the data and the methods that we use to determine what makes a consumer creditworthy. So, for example, exploring alternative data like rental or utility bill payment history have been shown to be valuable measures in determining a consumer's ability to repay his or her mortgage. I think this is particularly important for the Latino community and other historically underserved groups who do not have extensive credit histories with traditional lending institutions. So the old ways of determining credit approval are increasingly proving to be outdated and not as holistic methods of understanding a consumer's true financial positioning. Debt to income ratio, for example, that's something with the qualified mortgage rule. So Patty mentioned some of the rules and policies that we've been working on. One of them is the qualified mortgage rule that the CFPB put out a change this year, and thank you to all the collaboration with everyone on this panel in pushing that through. But I mentioned debt to income. That standalone debt to income does not work well for the communities who don't have access to generational wealth or strap the student debt. The other one is the W-2 earners. So those hustlers out there who are self-employed were cut out of the system before. We don't want to do that. That's not right. So the new rule expands access responsibly to those hustlers, to the people who are working hard to improve their education. And we need to support the government in getting to that place to include the communities that we're trying to serve.
I love that everybody's working together in this particular topic. Who said yes? Somebody wants to pitch in. Was that you? Oh yeah, Gary, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to comment on some of the points that were made by the panel. First of all, Patty talks about the desire for homeownership that Latinos have always demonstrated, especially coming from immigrant populations. I like to say that Latino immigrants are in this country not because they don't like the country they come from, not because they don't like the food or the music or the people. They come to this country for economic opportunity and acquiring a home. Being a homeowner is at the top of their list. So that desire is powerful, and all those of us in the industry, mobile technology as being sort of a starting point where a lot of potential home buyers start the process. The truth is that Latinos rank amongst the highest demographic. A lot of that has to do with our youth. The fact is that we love technology and we utilize it as much as any other demographic, if not more. And then, of course, our industry itself, our ability to be able to conduct business in a way that really serves the marketplace correct, really has a lot to do with the policies that are set in Washington, D.C., because housing is a highly regulated industry, and the mortgage banking industry in particular is tied to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA,
coaster ride, right? You look back at April or March of last year, and literally there were units and closings down about 40 or 45%. And you fast forward to where we're at today, and literally every record or every statistic in the real estate industry is at a record, whether it's a record high in prices or a record low in inventory. No matter what you look at, it's a record right now. And it's because of what I just call good old-fashioned supply and demand. Gary hit on so many excellent points that I want to kind of like bring out here. But I think at the end of the day, as you look at millennials and Gen Zers storming the market, which a majority, as you heard Gary say earlier, are in the Latino cohort, wanting that dream of home ownership, and the fact that, you know, on the supply side, we've underbuilt in this country for the last 10 years, and that going forward with the amount of household formations that we'll have, we just don't have enough places to live as a country. And, you know, Gary's earlier point about the home becoming even more and greater and having more meaning inside of the U.S. because of the pandemic and what's happened. You know, it's not just the place where you lay your head at night. It's the place where you're doing a lot more cooking and hosting, and it's your home gym and it's your home office and everything else. You're going to see a continued chase and demand in this country for home ownership. And we've got to do something, I think, as a country, with the government, in the industry, to really just get more inventory out there in some different and creative ways. So it's been a roller coaster. It's been a sprint, as I call it. I think we're in for a very long marathon based on some of the demographics and fundamentals in the business right now.
Yeah, definitely. The pandemic really came and changed the whole ball game. And Chrissy, I know that rocket companies were a big disruptor, and you guys continue with that trend. And how are you guys modifying strategies to really get to that consumer, to that Latino home buyer in culture and language as well?
Well, honestly, thank you, Gabby. That's such an important question. It's actually vital to reaching those consumers. It's not just vital for the strength of the mortgage industry for the foreseeable future, but for the success of the entire U.S. economy. We mentioned that magic number of 70% of new homeowners will be Latino, which is incredible. And again, if you are business minded, you should start thinking about what that means for bringing in those consumers, and how we reach those future owners matters. And within the Latino community itself, there is so much diversity. So we all need to come together. Industry, housing regulators, advocates must continue to work towards solutions that diversify how the Latino homebuyers are served. A cookie cutter approach to things like marketing and advertising, lead generation, origination, and servicing itself is not going to work. So at Rocket Mortgage, we really focused on this in 2020. It gave us an opportunity to continue to expand a lot of our work in communication and outreach in Spanish. We created a Spanish national COVID message of support. We launched our most recent campaign, Rocket Puede, and that's influenced by our general marketing message, which is Rocket Can, but is specifically designed with cultural nuances for the Hispanic market. And then we also built a Spanish website for Rocket Mortgage. We created a learning center in Spanish that included blogs about COVID response and homebuyer education. And because, like I said in the beginning, it's not just about the technology, it's about reaching our clients. I think Patty actually said that, not just about the technology, it's about reaching our clients where they are, whether that's in their preferred language or helping them understand the individual, or helping us understand the individual situations of each family. We really want to be there with each client to help them along the way into homeownership.
Yeah, because as Patty was expressing, and Patty, I would like to expand on that a little bit. It's not only the language, it's the cultural nuances. But then again, you also have mama and papa y la tia, everybody pitching in. And let's admit it, not everybody speaks English at home. We speak Spanish at home, yet all the closing and all the documents will be mainly in English, Patty.
Yes. That again is a regulatory issue that we have. So we do not have the ability to draw loan docs in Spanish because of the way we sell loans. So again, we have to come together as a country, and it couldn't be a better platform for all of us to really unite and get our voices heard during this current administration, since there's such a big focus to really increase homeownership to all demographics of minorities. But what I found is that trust in the Latino community is core to who they want to do business with. I get a lot of support from the Latino community because I'm a Latina, and I have a large workforce that mirrors the communities we serve. So when the consumer can see themselves, the minute they Google and they see that New American Funding is owned by a Latina, they're like, oh, she gets where I come from. She gets what our struggles were. She gets the way we save our money. And really, that's how we built our platform to serve. What I'm seeing right now is automation is such a key factor into manufacturing loans right now, and are actually leaving out our cultural nuances. We can't just automate a borrower that saves money with multiple family members and is able to get gifts from multiple family members. Those things are being left out. Our key to success at New American Funding is that we manually underwrite a large percentage of loans to these consumers. So it takes us longer, and it's a much more handheld process. Everything in our company is set up to mirror the communities, meaning when the loans are underwriting, they go to underwriters that specifically understand how Latinos live, how Latinos spend, and how Latinos save. So it's really important that the entire organization understands the cultural ways that we live in this country.
Yeah, but you're a results-driven person and company, so that says a lot. It's worth the effort. And for you, Mike, at Century 21, how do you guys? You're not a Latino, yet you can totally relate to our community, and you're selling homes to Latinos as well. How do you do that?
Yeah,
we adopted Mike. We adopted Mike a long time ago.
So okay, perfect, Mike.
but I actually love what Patty said, right? Because I think that what's really special about real estate is that it is so local. And you know, we're talking about Latinos, but there are many different categories of Latinos throughout this great country that we have around the globe, right? And I think that we've got to be really specific and have amazing sales professionals, and to Patty's point and Chrissy's point, great mortgage professionals in this business who come from that culture, come from that background, know the nuances. And you know, at Century 21, we try really, really hard. You know, Gary is part of one of our what we call our brain trust that is helping trying to develop more Hispanic real estate professionals in the marketplace, because you know, San Diego and Boston and Detroit and you know, no matter where you are in this country, those real estate markets are different. The mortgage rules sometimes are different around, you know, what components go into needing to, you know, get into the market and qualify. But at the end of the day, it's all about having more folks in the real estate profession from a Latino background to understand those cultural nuances. We've done a bunch of great things right now. We've had an Empowering Latinas program where we try to get real estate professionals in different marketplaces in LA, in Houston, in Miami, for, you know, whether they're college age or just coming out of high school, to get into the real estate industry and explain to them how great an industry it is, where you can make a lot of money, but you could and provide wealth for yourself, but you could also deliver back to your community. And I think it goes back to what you said a little bit earlier. It's all about informing and educating the folks that are in your marketplace in order to deliver on that dream. And you know, it's just exciting. And I think the more that we can do as real estate professionals to bring more Hispanics and more Latinos into the real estate industry, whether it's on the mortgage side of the equation or on the real estate professional side of the equation, it's just going to be better off to serve all the demographics that Gary talked about earlier. I mean, it's coming. Chrissy said it. Like, if you're in business and you're not looking at this community and what they're going to mean to the U.S. economy in the years ahead, you're blind.
Yeah, we're looking at that wonderful project and the Eva Longoria Foundation with Century 21. I mean, and you guys cover so many different countries as well, that you guys get like a little bit of everybody into your mix, and that is wonderful. And Gary, I would like to ask you to when we were talking about technology, and I'm thinking right now, I'm thinking Zillow and Redfin and all these other things. Are they actually getting us? Or how do they get in touch with the Latino community? How could they possibly?
Well, I think, first of all, new technologies entering the marketplace is a great thing. And some of the companies that you mentioned have been trailblazers in really starting to automate the industry, I think, for the better, which reduces costs. But I think to Patty's point, sometimes in our effort to automate everything, we miss out on certain niches in the marketplace that have nuances. And that's one of the things that we need to protect ourselves against. I will say, and I will repeat, that Latinos love technology, especially mobile technology. We out-index the general population in terms of mobile technology and in terms of social media. So using technology to reach the Latino community is proven as being an effective way to do that. Doing it in language, doing it in a way that connects to them culturally, then you've really hit a home run.
Exactly. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Yeah, I mean, we've all said it, but this is where what we were talking about before with the partnerships is so critical. You know, we keep saying that Latinos are, particularly millennials, are technologically savvy. They're engaging in their consumer transactions by phone through entirely digital means. But at the same time, the role of that face-to-face interaction and community relationship is so important, which is the partnership with the real estate agents, as well as feeling supported, so that you have the trust and confidence to have that first step. So we've actually kind of, from beginning and end at Rocket, we've created this process. So we have platforms like Rocket Homes all the way to Rocket Mortgage to empower our clients throughout the entire homeowner process. And that's from the very beginning, from when you're searching for your dream home, all the way to that time after you close your loan and you begin repayment with our servicing team. We want to make sure that you know that it's a journey. There may be some opportunities that we will grow with you in along the way, but ultimately we want to get you there. And in fact, I do have to give us a little plug because we just found out this morning that I mentioned our servicing program. We found out today that for the 8th consecutive year, we won. J.D. Power has identified Rocket Mortgage as #1 in client satisfaction in servicing in the entire nation. And servicing, like I said, is that journey that keeps people in their home even after they close the loan.
Oh, wow. That's absolutely great. Congratulations, Chrissy. Congratulations to Rocket Companies as well. And it's a little bit scary when I think about this millennials building all these platforms in the basement, and they are just building there for hours. And Patty, to that effect, we were talking about how this multi-generational Latino family addresses the situation of buying a house or refinancing or building that extra unit in the back and probably renting it. There's so many different aspects in which I think that the entire family pitches in a different way. Can you tell us what you're doing to empower that Latino woman, particularly that young Latino woman that is going to be at the driver all of this, especially when it comes to technology and addressing all this?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that Latinas are driving business, self-employment, business opportunity, college graduations at a record number. Latinas are opening more small businesses than any other demographic in this country. And honestly, uncomfortably, years ago, I put myself out there so that Latinas in our country would see us in business, not just on TV shows. So I think it's really something very, very important right now. But we all know, if you're Latina, that the driving force behind decision-making in any Latino family is quién? La mamá. So we know that as a company. I know that as a daughter of a Latina mom, that I still decisions from a family level. Aspirations, our dreams are driven from the mother of our núcleo. So I think that knowing that is important, so that, you know, I remember years ago simply said, you have a Latino family come to the table for their home loan, and el papá está, you know, he'll put his talón de cheque on the counter, but it's the mom that is sitting there being the trusted advisor. So I think that's still culturally very, very, very relevant. But yes, I think that the powerhouses of this country right now are the Latina demographics, and I think that you need to speak Latina in your company. And the way I do that is I get to do that myself as a passion of mine. But really, it's so important for us to tell our narrative and our story so that they see themselves being successful in our country, because we are such a driving force right now.
Yeah, absolutely. At every level, not only first-time buyers. And that takes me to our next topic, because buying your first home is only the beginning of it. And now we would like to explore what happens afterwards. As we were saying, it's not only that first-time buyer, but that refinance, that forbearance that we saw so many, but there's somebody who has to service that as well. So Gary, explain to me a little bit the huge contribution of all this supporting real estate professionals that are not only the real estate agents that sell you the house in the first place.
Yeah, so first of all, your comment about sustainability, access to home ownership is one thing, but unless that family can sustain that home ownership status, we haven't accomplished anything. And I think we learned that in 2008 and 2012 when we had the Great Recession, that sustainability is as important as anything. And that has a lot to do with the way we service loans and the way we address macroeconomic issues like what we had over the past year with the pandemic, and the forbearance policies that were enacted by the federal government, which made sure that nobody lost their home to foreclosure during the pandemic, during a time when businesses were challenged in a way that maybe they never had in the past. So it is definitely an important part of the process. Having companies and real estate professionals in particular who understand some of those complicated issues is critical. Latino real estate professionals in particular are not just facilitators of homeownership transactions. They are trusted advisors in their communities. And the community, individuals, homeowners, people they've served in the past, come to them for a wide variety of guidance and input for all things related to the financial world. So I think that Mike made a point early on that I would double down on, And that is one of the things that we need to accomplish in this industry to ensure this growth and to make sure that these consumers are appropriately serviced, is we need to substantially increase the numbers of Latinos who are in the real estate and mortgage banking industries. If I had a silver bullet and I could do only one thing that I think would have the biggest impact on Hispanic homeownership, it would be that.
Wow, that is huge. And of course, I have to bring in Mike and ask him about that golden jacket thing that you guys do. Is that part of this deal? I don't know.
That's not part of this deal anymore. Look, we literally yesterday was our 50th anniversary. We celebrated. I was down in San Diego, about probably 30 miles from where we got started, and it was a great event. I met with so many actually amazing Latino and Latina real estate professionals. In fact, to Gary's point, I met with Gabe Mendez, who had just got started. He's a young millennial. I don't know if he's scratching 30 yet. He had his best year ever. And the great part about it is, as Gabe continues to deliver extraordinary experiences to his clients throughout and gets referral and repeat business and is building his business, he's bringing more Latinos onto his team in order to, again, reach a broader market throughout that San Diego marketplace. So to Gary's point, I think we got to continue to do that. And just by virtue of the population, I think you'll see a lot more coming into the space. And at Century 21, we're doing everything we can to help drive them in.
Yeah, and I know Rocket companies have done a lot about that. Can you just tell us a little bit briefly, Chrissy, about that, what you have done with ads and all that stuff?
So it's in regards to servicing and forbearance, or?
Yeah, servicing, the Hispanic community, forbearance, and all the other things that you've done also in Spanish.
Yeah, well, I mentioned a few of them before, and especially during this time in the pandemic, we found it to be incredibly crucial that we translate our materials to Spanish and outreach, especially, no matter what language you speak, all of the solutions around forbearances are incredibly confusing, even for the mortgage servicers and the lenders. So finding opportunities to translate how folks can get back on track into repayment options is necessary, not only for mortgages, but just for the entire economy, so people can get back to work, get back to their families, get back to life. Maybe there's going to be, it won't ever be normal, I guess, like it was, but to our new normal. And in order to do that, in order to have those conversations that are incredibly personal and very stressful, especially right now, we need to meet our clients.
Chrissy froze.
Every
there she is.
There she goes.
We have a set of isms, and there are 20 of them, and one of them is called every client, every time, no exceptions, no excuses. And that really informs our work here when we translate to Spanish. If somebody calls us and they want to speak to us in Spanish, we find someone, a native Spanish speaker, to have that conversation. If they want to engage on our Spanish website, we direct them to that Spanish website. We provide the options so that as they go through the journey, we're there with them.
Oh, that's great. So all in all, I would say age plus income plus entrepreneurship makes us really a good market. Isn't that so, Gary?
It makes us a great market. Like I said before, the Latino demographic is probably the most passionate and the most optimistic segment of our population in terms of our belief in the American dream. And homeownership is at the top of that list in terms of priorities.
Absolutely.
And Gary,
Patty,
on top of that, right?
Go ahead, Gary.
No, go ahead. On top of that, Gary mentioned this earlier, but let's not forget, again, buying real estate helps build wealth for anybody in this country. On top of that, it's anywhere from 20 to 25% of our GDP. And on top of that, every time there's a residential real estate transaction in a marketplace, it brings anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 of economic activity back into that market. Movers, Home Depots, local stores, whatever the case may be. Real estate really has driven this economy over the last 18 months, but it's literally driven it historically.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything that you mentioned, even though closing documents and everything would be in English, as Patty was saying, for us at home, the decisions are made in Spanish around our table, the old-fashioned way still today, right? Isn't that so, Patty?
Yes, most definitely. And just like Chrissy said, I mean, if you call New American Funding, from the beginning to the end, there is we're a full bilingual company from inception of the loan to servicing. We also own our own servicing company, just like Rocket. And during the issues of COVID and forbearance, I think we did a tremendous job in hand-holding everybody into the process instead of automating people into the process like many of our peers did. You can't just stick somebody into something they don't understand. So I think critically as an industry right now, not just getting Latinos into homes, like Gary said, we need to keep them in the homes. We need to work together as an industry when the restrictions start and the COVID relief starts ending and keeping these borrowers in the home. But I know for a fact, and our data suggests, is that they want to speak to somebody on the phone. This is not an automated process with the Latino community. We need to be handheld through the process. We need to understand the impact to our credit, impact repayment, and really just the ability to stay in the home, because a lot of us who don't know, who come from different countries, who don't have access to mortgage loans in the country we come from, don't understand that simply ignoring a phone call or ignoring letters because they don't understand is not good for them. We are a trusted, we will work together. Rocket, New American Funding, all the major banks want to keep people in homes. So my biggest call out is just to speak to somebody on the phone and not ignore the fact and be okay with that. Maybe they don't understand the process of something they're doing right now, but we are here to help everybody get through this COVID pandemic issues around homeownership.
Yeah, so we can continue to be driving precisely home ownership in the United States, not for the benefit only of our community, but the entire nation. And I think that that would be the key message. Anybody who would like to say anything that I left out?
Gabby, I'd like to kind of recircle what everybody just said. I think at the end of the day, it's all about, as Patty was mentioning and Chrissy said, finding a trusted advisor. The process might seem cumbersome. It might be a little kind of overwhelming at sometimes, but get that trusted advisor, whether it's on the mortgage side of the equation or the real estate side of the equation. And trust me, they will be your best friend throughout the process and help deliver on your dream.
And even more so, Mike, they're going to continue to come back, because once they've bought the house from you, they're going to come back for the refinance for you. And then they're going to come back to you for the real estate attorney that is going to leave that to the kids and the trust making thing. And I mean, it's such a big process that stays with you forever through generations. And I think that that would be it. I want to thank all of you. Mike, thank you very much. Chrissy, Patty, it was great to meet you. And thank you, Gary, for bringing us all that data that really, really puts this whole thing in context. Thank you, the four of us. Thank you, the four of you. And the five of us. I learned a lot, I have to say. Thank you so much. And to you at home, I hope that you have gotten all this information down. And if not, remember always that univision.com is there to help you. I want to bring in our general manager and president, Luis Patiño, because he has a very important message. Luis, I know that you've been listening in.
Taking lots of notes, like hopefully
Yes.
everybody who's watching this webinar. Great information. I know just as I'm standing here to the side watching all of our experts, I'm getting some texts from different people just really thanking us for bringing this information to light, for bringing it to the community at large, and especially to all of our business professionals who are watching. So I have a few things that I just wanted to cover on behalf of Univision, aside from thanking you, Gabby. You're doing a phenomenal job as always. Muchas gracias. So really just, thank you for joining us today to everyone. We hope that you've really enjoyed the conversations as we have so far with these amazing experts in real estate, home ownership, mortgage, and financial sectors. Our goal really was to highlight the importance of Latino home buyers and their growing relevance to the industry. But I think we also heard how the demand for from Latino consumers is also increasing the need for new financial products and even for more Latino real estate agents that can service their clients in Spanish and do it with skilled cultural expertise. I wanted to emphasize 3 key takeaways. Number 1, despite the pandemic and all the hardship that it brought to Latino homeowners, the Latino homeownership rates still continued to rise in 2020 to record levels, going on 7 years of continued growth. Number 2, according to the Urban Institute, over the next 20 years, Latinos will make up 70% of all new homeowners in the United States. I know Gary mentioned that several times. To me, it's a staggering figure. And number 3, our families are younger. They're growing in affluence and economic mobility. Key data points such as household income, college attainment rates, entrepreneurship, and small business ownership all point to the need for companies, especially those in the financial sector, to have dedicated strategic plans for reaching this consumer. Not only can it be not ignored, but it must be treated as part of your strategic growth lever in the years to come. So how can we put these findings to good use? Let me show you. At UNIVISION, we've built Brand Labs, an end-to-end solution for our clients and agency partners to make your journey in marketing to U.S. Hispanics easier and more effective. With Brand Labs, we can help walk you through this process in 6 key areas. We will assist you in sizing the prize and assessing your growth opportunity. Our team of industry and category experts can help you with custom insights and research. As for the financial sector, we have an in-house category specialist who comes from the industry and are constantly fielding research, like our most recent study on Latinos and FinTech. Together, we can create a winning media strategy across all digital and linear platforms. We'll also help develop best-in-class, in-language, and culturally relevant creative, plus bring it to life with our award-winning production capabilities. And finally, we can help you measure and optimize your campaign's performance to make sure it's delivering on the results of your campaign. And when you need to reach and engage at every passion point along the Latino consumer journey, we're here to help. And here are some ways that we can do that. UNIVISION has a media portfolio unlike any other, beginning with our broadcast television and cable networks, including any one of our 62 local television stations, plus our 58 local radio stations across the US, and add to that our multiple cable offerings providing national coverage, including the #1 US Spanish language sports cable network, TUDN. We also serve with purpose, as our CSR and community empowerment offerings are vital to our mission to inform, empower, and entertain. Our enormous access to international sports rights and properties deliver on one of our community's biggest passion points, soccer. Our award-winning news programming continues to rank #1 in most cities across the US, and here in Los Angeles, our local newscast has been the top choice for Angelinos, regardless of language, going on over 20 years. Entertainment, reality, award shows are all part of our core offerings, allowing for massive reach and scale, with programs such as the Latin Grammys coming to a screen near you in November. And finally, our expanding digital offerings means that our programming is always on the go, with custom branded content, influencer amplification, and our newest streaming offering, Prende TV, free and unlimited premium television in Espanol. So I know that's a lot to consider, but the UNIVISION team is here to help you every step of the way. So with that, Gabby, I'm going to toss it back to you. Before I toss it back to you, on behalf of UNIVISION, I'd like to thank Gary, who really partnered with us on this journey to bring this webinar together, invited all of his friends. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Patty. And of course, thank you,
Chrissy. Thank you.
Chrissy. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Chrissy from Rocket. We really appreciate the partnership. Everything that you guys brought to this webinar is just amazing, detailed, data-driven information that I know will be extremely helpful for everybody who participated. So thank you so much.
UNIVISION really hits the note when you put it all together. I want to thank, of course, all of our panelists, and I want to thank you for finding us here at UNIVISION. But we go to wherever you are, on your phone, on your tablet, on any media that you want to find us. We're there to help you, to serve you, and to reach the Latino community. Go back to our QR code and press it there. Our UNIVISION team is there to serve you and to help you every step of the way, as Luis said. And we'll see you next time. And I want to encourage you to reach out to those Latino homeowners and potential home buyers. See you next time.